We start today with breaking news from the track meet stabbing trial of Carmelo Anthony. After a 3-hour break in the middle of today's proceedings, the defense has rested its case now. Our senior crime and justice reporter, Rebecca Lopez, is coming to us from the Collin County Courthouse this afternoon, where she has been watching the trial all day. Rebecca, this phase of the trial is coming to an end, both sides resting. Did that come as a surprise to folks that the defense wrapped up so quickly?
Jason, it did come as a surprise to many of the courtroom observers because many anticipated that the defense would go a little bit longer and that Carmelo Anthony could possibly take the stand, but we didn't hear from him, and we also didn't hear from Hunter Metcalf, Austin Metcalf's twin brother. The defense ended its case by calling 2 student athletes and a Frisco police detective before court unexpectedly broke for nearly 3 hours. One Centennial student testified he saw what appeared to be a push moments before Austin Metcalf was stabbed. Another Frisco student described track meets as highly social events where athletes often visit other teams' tents. Jurors also heard from a detective who reviewed witness interviews and phone evidence during the investigation. When court resumed, both sides rested and officially closed the evidence. That means jurors never heard from Carmelo Anthony himself. They also again never heard testimony from Austin Metcalf's twin brother, Hunter Metcalf. The decision not to call Anthony is significant, but legal experts note the defense is not required to prove his innocence. Under the law, the burden remains entirely on prosecutors to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Jason.
So Rebecca, obviously, as you just said there, a defendant is not required to testify at their own trial. Still going into this, I think a lot of experts were expecting that perhaps Anthony would take the stand in his own defense, but that was just one of those curves that we saw in court today when he didn't.
Yes, that was one of the biggest questions hanging over this trial. Would Carmelo Anthony take the stand? And ultimately, there was this long 3-hour time period where we believe that the attorneys were discussing whether or not he was going to take the stand. And ultimately, they decided not to because, again, some defense attorneys say that they don't put their client on the stand because, again, this is a 17-year-old kid who is going up against very seasoned prosecutors, and they just did not want to take that risk. That often happens in cases like this, and ultimately, again, he didn't have to take the stand. It is not his burden to prove his innocence. It's entirely up to prosecutors to do that.
And Rebecca, you also touched on another big salient point from proceedings today, that being that Hunter Metcalf did not take the stand as well. Again, I think they're going into this trial. A lot of folks were expecting that perhaps Austin's twin brother would also testify.
Yes, he was right there next to his brother and actually also tried to give him CPR. And so a lot of people anticipated he might be the prosecution's star witness, but prosecutors believed that they had enough witnesses to prove their case and ultimately decided not to call him. And that also could be because this was the worst moment of Hunter Metcalf's life. And it could be that prosecutors just did not want to subject this Hunter Metcalf to having to relive the death of his twin brother, Austin.
Oh, all right, before we let you go here, Rebecca, where do we go next here now that both of the sides have rested? What are we expecting?
So tomorrow morning, the jury will be read the charges by the judge, and then they will hear closing arguments from both sides, where both sides wrap up their cases and tell the jurors what they believe they proved in this case, and then they will begin deliberations. And the judge has already said that he will sequester this jury if they don't come up with a verdict tomorrow. He will put them in a hotel overnight, and that's to kind of keep them away from any kind of media or to see anything on the TV or read anything about this or hear from anybody about this trial to keep this process fair. Jason.
All right, Rebecca, once again, thanks so much for walking us through another big day in court in this trial that has certainly drawn a lot of interest. Really appreciate it. WFAA, of course, is your eyes and ears in that courtroom. You can get more context on what's happening with our nightly special called After the Trial. It is streaming on WFAA Plus every evening at 8 p.m. while court is in session. And again, you can get WFAA Plus and download it straight to your TV for free.